Hi, welcome everybody. We are just going to wait for a couple of minutes more to give everybody a chance to learn the ropes of WebEx and join us on this brand protection webinar. So just give us a couple of minutes and we're good to go. Okay, I think we can start. We have others joining us soon, as soon as they can get in. But to maximize the time that we have available today and to use this opportunity to learn about branding in general from our expert speakers today, I think it's time we get going. So without taking much time, I have first of all pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar, which is in partnership with the GreatBrands, where University of Luxembourg Incubator wants to provide all of our students and external partners who have tuned in today this opportunity to learn about this fantastic new tool that GreatBrands have come forth with. And we are really looking forward to learning more about it for our startups and students, but also hope that this will be a very informative session for all the other partners who have joined today. So today we have two experts on the topic who honestly do not need much introduction. I will still try to talk about them a bit. So everybody in Luxembourg, if you want to test or you need a barometer to test how well connected you are. There is just one person who's LinkedIn, you log into and check how many mutual connections you have, and that one person is Philip Grother. He's the true connector in Luxembourg startup ecosystem. I'm pretty sure if you go to his LinkedIn now as a good exercise, send him a friend request. You'll pretty much find that he knows everybody that you know. So that's a good way to describe him. Philip has in the past and currently continues to be a milestone in the industry, and he keeps stepping on one after the other stones with his stepping stone startup, which helps startups and has been helping also as a mentor a lot of startups at the incubator to find the right steps to take at the early stages to boost their company. In GreatBrands, it's a partnership with Philip, and where he's basically the one who's the sales guy, working closely with Mark Chamel, who's the brains and, let's say, the hands behind the whole concept. Mark has been working for this branding and brand protection for many years, and is a true expert and champion in providing the best guidance on how to go about branding as a startup. So that's enough from my side. I think you all want to hear more about what Philip and Mark has to say, and to learn more about how you go about protecting your brand. So Philip and Mark, we are excited and honored to have this webinar here, and really look forward to getting becoming experts in brand protection in next 1.5 hours. So the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pranjul, first and foremost for your very flattering words, I must say. Thank you all for being here. Special thanks to the Incubator, with who we've been, in fact, partnering up to provide you with this this webinar. So today we're going to really keep it quite general. Of course, there are going to be loads of questions that are going to come out of this webinar. We're going to provide you with some insights, some information. There's going to be a Q&A session. We've allocated quite a bit of time for that at the end. So please do feel free to write down your questions. And if you don't want to send them yourselves or ask them yourselves, you can definitely reach out to the team who will ask them for you. So even if you're shy, but you must have questions, you can feel free to reach out to them. So it really is our pleasure to introduce brand protection. And this is really one of many conversations that we can have about brand protection. Pranjul, you mentioned the startup environment. We're going to cover quite a few aspects today, and some of them you'll see we'll even talk about some cases with brands that you're definitely going to recognize. First and foremost, I think that we should start with the basics, and it's been my absolute pleasure to build GreatBrands with Mark. So, Mark, we'll keep this very conversational, of course. We'll play conversational ping pong, and so we're going to start off with why brands are important and why we should have them. So, from a trademarking point of view, we need to remember that trademarks are a certificate that is delivered by a national or international trademark office. So, for example, in Europe, there's UIPO. And Mark, you're going to tell us a tiny bit more in the following slides about what trademarks are and why we should have them. So, Mark.
Absolutely. Warm welcome also from my side, and I'm really happy that you're all here, and I'm really happy to have the possibility to explain you a little bit more about trademarks and what are the benefits. So let's start with it. Companies are actually working very hard to promote themselves or their products. Actually, they invest an awful lot of money and time in this. So company and product names are actually unique recognition points where customers are finding them and identifying them. They're telling friends and family about this via the name. They're saying it's actually go to Kleenex or go to Coca-Cola and buy these kind of things. They're not saying buy whatever product coding or whatsoever. So it's a name which everything starts is actually something very, very important, and it's a huge value for every company. Around the name, there is often, if you're having a product, there is often some visual identification as a packaging or logos or stuff like this, which people are actually immediately recognize the product or even the service via this. So it's very important to protect these. Imagine if you have a name and you have invested a lot of time and a lot of money in developing this name and developing this brand, and someone else comes in there and registers the name and comes to you and says, no, you're not allowed to use your name anymore. What will happen? So these will be huge problems. You will have an awful lot of loss of reputation and money, and you can start all over again. So it's very important that at the very first beginning, when you're developing a company or when you're developing a product, that you actually also protect at least first thing the name, so that you're actually able to use it and that no one can make you any problems. As Philip mentioned before, there are several offices doing this. You have the possibility to register a name or design marks actually on the national level. So you can go to France, German trademark offices and register your trademark or your design mark on the national level. Or you have the possibility to do it on an area, like for Benelux, it's on the BOIB, or at EU-IPO for the European level. It's
Indeed.
creating a trademark is actually not only a protection, it's also creating a real and a true value. Because actually, the more you work on it and the more you develop your brand and your trademark, the higher the value is. As I said before, people are actually buying your products via the name. They recognize it via the name, and this is a huge value. The more the people are actually buying, and the more it is, the higher the value it is, and the more the people are recognizing your name, the higher the value is. And values are actually protected, and you can only owe a value, if you have registered it. It's a little bit. I'm always taking the example of buying a house. You cannot move into a house without owing it, or selling it without having a certificate that you are the owner of this house. And it's a little bit the same with trademarks. If you have registered the trademark, then you have to prove that you have the sole right in using this trademark for the respective classes. Concerning the classes, I will come back later in the webinar. I will go a little bit more into this, but you have a certain area of business where you can register your trademark, and this is defined via the classes. So within these classes, you actually have the possibility to create this ownership, and you can do then whatever you want with your trademark. You can sell it, you can use it, you can build it, whatever you want. Certainly in a legal way, you can do. So that's basically, just in a few words, the basic what are trademarks and why do we need them.
So that actually takes us to the first lesson learnt today of why we need them. You could work for 20 years on your brand. If that brand is not protected and you don't own it, somebody else comes along, protects it. As Mark said, he or she can turn around and say, you're not allowed to use that anymore. So that's the first lesson learnt today. So speaking of the specificities of trademarks, as soon as the slide actually changes over, here we go. The joys of WebEx. So now that we understand why we need them, we're going to talk about different aspects that we need to bear in mind. We're going to talk about the process afterwards, but there is one thing that absolutely, and this is the first and foremost thing that needs to be understood. It needs to be distinctive and not descriptive. And Mark's going to tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. There are several rules that are actually defined by the respective trademark associations or offices. As we say, one and the most important one is that a trademark has to be distinctive and is not allowed to be descriptive. So, like for example, if you're having a banana shop, you're not allowed to call your name or you register your trademark like banana shop, etc., etc. So this is actually to avoid confusion between customers and to avoid so that you have certain competition that's going in between. So it needs to be distinctive and not descriptive. Descriptive also because for advertisement purposes, so that the name is not actually advertising itself. There are several rules concerning this. But you can play around with classes. Like, for example, if you have the banana shop, but you're selling books in the banana shop, and you're registering the class for books, then actually it's no longer descriptive, because banana shop has actually nothing to do with books under brackets. So it's something, if you're going into the business and you stay in the description of your trademark, not in the same area of business. I hope I'm really make it understandable, Philip. If not, you just take it over. But it's basically, you just need to define the right class and the right area of business, so that your banana shop, which is selling books, is not descriptive, because it's actually not selling bananas, it's selling books. So that's the point. Which leads me over to the classes. There are actually 45 classes that define the area of businesses where the trademarks can be registered. There are all in all 34 for goods and 11 for services. Within these 45 classes, there are several thousand of subclasses, which define in detail the exact area of businesses where you can register your trademark. The main classes for the trademarks are called the NITSA classes, where all the international trademark office are using these classes for the definition of the area of business. The third point we're mentioning here is actually that you can register the same name using different classes. Like, for example, we're taking the banana shop. If someone's registering the name banana shop for the class for books, someone else can register the name banana shop for, like, for example, automotive manufacturer or chemicals or something like that. So this is actually possible. You just need to be careful that there is no cross mix-up by doing this. Like, for example, if you have books, ebooks will be at the same level. So if you have registered your name for books, someone else cannot register it for ebooks, as it's too close in the class for the same registration. There are some little details that need to be considered on this, but if someone wants to have more detailed information about this, I'm very happy to reply, because that's a topic that goes very, very deep, and I can talk about this for hours. But it's something that's very, very important, because the classes are actually really a very important point, and it can be decisive if someone when someone registers a trademark and it's you get an opposition, or the trademark office actually refuses the thing. It might give you a certain argumentation against these opposition, or against the decision if the trademark office actually says no to the registration. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit sick today, but I'm losing my voice, but I will try my best to keep it up. A very, very important point is actually that all brand assets should be considered when you register a trademark. Everything starts with a name, but that's not all. If you're creating a product, or if you're creating a service or a company name, there are an awful lot of things that normally go with this. There might be slogans, there might be logos, there might be packaging, there might be jingles, whatsoever. There are an awful lot of things and points that should be considered when you register your trademark. And the better you do this, and the better you analyze, the higher the value and the higher the protection is. I'll give you an example. If you're having now a name called Banana Shop, and you have designed a very, very cool logo around this, and you register just the name, but you're promoting your logo as well together with your name, and someone else takes this logo, just using another name, but using a similar or the same logo, you have invested all the money and all the efforts by developing this logo actually for free, because if this person is registering the logo, they can actually forbid you to use this logo, and then you have lost your visual recognition point on this on your package of the trademark registration. We always consider people or consult to people actually think big. Think in the next 3 to 5 years, where would you like to go? What are the things that you would like to do? Consider this by analyzing and by choosing the classes, by choosing the slogans, your designs. The name normally is a fixed point that you already have chosen before, but you really need to go and check in deep what are all the assets that go around your product, you go around your company name, and that all this should be considered when you register a trademark.
Indeed. So here what we've got, not an issue. Here what we've got, and Mark has made this very clear, the importance of choosing the classes, but also when we're talking about the assets that go into building a brand. And when we're talking about assets, we need to think big, but we also need to think laterally. This means that we're talking about the logo, the packaging, but then now, and we're all here thanks to the internet, we also need to consider social media, all of the assets that get built for your website, everything that goes into the visual identification of who you are as not only a company, but also that allows for the recognition of your brand, product, and services. And this brings us to the type of trademark that you're going to actually be choosing. Mark mentioned just earlier on the word mark or a figurative mark, but you need to understand that there are many different types of trademark. So, Mark, would you like to tell us a bit more about the types of trademark, very briefly, that exist out there?
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. It was actually also planned to come onto one of the later slides, but there are several marks that you can register. The most common mark is the word mark, which actually consists exclusively of words or letters or numeral or standard typographic characters, or basically also a combination of these. Then you have different figurative marks. So the single figurative marks where non-standard characters or graphical features or colors are used. Then the figurative mark using word elements, etc., etc. Different things are also shape marks, and the shape mark containing word element. And then we're coming up to new marks like pattern marks, etc., etc. But I will not go into deep into this, because this again could take another couple of hours to go into deep. But a lot of people do not know it's that even colors can be registered as a trademark. So color marks are very common and coming up, or sound marks. If your company has a jingle that's specially designed for your company, even these can be registered as a trademark. Multimedia mark, motion marks, etc. And all this next to the standard trade and design marks that are actually available. So on the product or on the design marks, actually you can even define product designs or websites, logos, etc., etc. So there are a lot of things that can be considered in the protection or in the creation of the value related directly to your company value, and these are giving you a huge amount in creating a huge value. And we're later on we're coming to some of the examples we're having in the world where these kind of things have been successfully implemented. Exactly.
Indeed. So really that does bring us to wrapping up this first part, which I think we've all understood by now that having a trademark obviously has benefits, and these are just 4 of them. So having a proof of ownership and the sole right of use is effectively going to set you up so that you can grow your company without fear of having your trademark or your name usurped by somebody else. Okay, as soon as there are people that want to try and copy you, because you own that trademark, because you have that brand protection around your trademark effectively, you can then take these people to court. That's why we put protection there as one of the benefits, because this is going to be the only way that you can actually attack people that are trying to attack your brand, or you can defend yourself against infringers. Okay, so one of the things that has come up is over the last few years is trademark grabbing, and this is becoming actually quite problematic. And for a bit of background, Mark actually comes from the domain name industry, and for quite a while this was really quite a big problem in the domain name industry, and we're actually seeing that coming up more and more in the trademark industry. So maybe Mark, you can give us your past experience in what happened in domain names, and it will help us understand what the potential risk is for trademarks moving forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So domain name grabbing was a couple of years ago a huge problem that third party actually have registered the domain names that could be used by companies. Like, for example, I'm taking the example again of the banana shop. Someone has registered bananashop.com or the local one for .lu or .eu, and then domain grabbers, when they saw that certain success was running on this project, they actually under brackets stole the other available good TLDs, so the domain name endings like .com, .net, .org, so everything that was free. And they have put then either bad advertisement, or they have asked for an awful lot of money to the other domain name owner in there. The protection you could have is basically that you register a trademark, because then you could, in the area where you have registered a trademark, claim the domain name back. And these are services we're actually offering too, because the best protection for a domain name is registering it as a trademark. So that's the point. And the domain grabber actually also saw this. So what they're doing now is they're not registering the trademark, the domain name. They're immediately registering the trademark. So they're having the source and they're having the protection immediately. So when domain grabber, and this problem basically comes from the Chinese and the Russian market, that people, if they try to register trademarks in this area, or they are observing the market, and if they see that interesting products are actually launched, they try to register the trademark before the company that owns the name, or wants to use the name, or wants to launch the product. And when they launch the product, then they will receive a nice little letter by saying, okay, we are already owner of this trademark, so you cannot register it. And if you want to use it, you have to either to pay or to, basically most of the time it's that they want to have a huge amount of money. It's what I call
the nicest.
Yeah, but it's what I call modern and legal robbery, because actually it's on the trademarks, it's a first come first serve base, and if someone else is quicker than you, they have the right to do it. So it's a huge problem. There are legal possibilities to go against these, because if you can prove that this is just these trademarks are actually just registered because of bad faith, then if you can prove this, you can do something, you can go against this, or there are other legal tips and tricks. But on this page, the lawyers are actually better to reply on this than we are here. But there are legal possibilities to go against these, but it's very, very, very difficult, because you need to have 110% proof of these kind of things. Otherwise, no court of justice will take a decision to free up the trademark, or even no local or international trademark office will do this. But we're coming also next slide on a nice little example for one of these. It has nothing to do with trademark robbery, but it's a little bit similar on these.
Yeah, definitely. And so when we're talking with our clients, the way that we describe trademarks is really like an insurance. And the last thing that we want is for people to walk away with a knot in their stomach saying, oh my God, I need to go out and protect absolutely everything. We need to be strategic about what it is that we want to protect. As we'll see in the later examples, there are certain companies that started out with zero protection, and that's perfectly normal. But this is why we're talking about assets. as you're growing and as the financial means allow it, you will be able to protect more and more assets, and this is where a brand protection strategy comes into play. And naturally, we're talking about the financial side. So what does it mean to have trademarks? And we'll talk about investors afterwards. So naturally, by doing all of this, there's a process that is very well established. But before we even start the process, we need to ask ourselves ask ourselves the questions that are going to allow us to best set up the brand protection strategy. So what is it that I want to protect? And as soon as you start looking into everything that surrounds your company, your product, your service, whether they are advertised offline or online, you're going to start talking about, and this is something that we mentioned, your logos, your packaging, your website, your social media handles, all of your domain names. So if we start digging a bit deeper, Mark, would you like to tell us more about what it is that we can register?
Yeah, sure. It's what I mentioned already before. So you have different types of trademarks, like basically everything starts with the word mark. Your company has a name, or your product has a name, and this name is actually always the start of the trademark journey that starts with it. Very often we see that actually people, they already have decided for a name. We check if the name is available. If this name is available, customers can go ahead and then they check left, right, are the domain names available? What can we do else, etc., etc. So these are the things that we basically always start with. The next point is when the name is clear. Design companies often come with sort of corporate or product identities, like logos, packagings, like all the things that go on the visual identification of the product or of the service that's going to be in there. And that's what's the next step we do register. Something that's very important also, and I forgot to mention this beforehand, it's the similarity verification. So it's also if you have a name that's actually in a written form or in a phonetic form, actually similar to the name that you would like to register, it basically can't be registered if it's in the same class. It's actually again the same procedure as for the same name. So if you have a similar name like Banana Shop or whatsoever, on my example that I had beforehand, it won't be possible to register that one because it's too similar to the Banana Shop in the same class. The next thing is, what's also very, very important is to check where would you like to register your trademark. If you're, I don't know, small manufacturing company that's in the Luxembourg area, it might be interesting if you have customers in France or in Germany to register your trademark all over Europe, because actually the European trademarks from a pricing structure is way more interesting than to register the trademark in the Benelux, France, and Germany, because then we're close to the price for the European community trademarks. But it's really important to see where are you doing business, where are your customers, where would you like to have the protection. And in this case, we need to inform always, the more countries you cover, the better the protection and to higher the value, because you have a higher and a better audience that can see you. You have a better protection in all the countries, as if you just register your trademark in the national area. But as I said, for a small manufacturer of I don't know, Luxembourg beer or whatsoever, it's actually not interesting to register a trademark somewhere in Germany or in France or in the Netherlands or whatsoever. No, Netherlands is covered with Luxembourg. So that's actually we always check together with the customer, where do they want to go and where does it make sense to protect it. Then again, the classes, as you can see, classes are always a very important point. And again, think big, think in the future. What would you like to do? You might perhaps, if you register your company name just for beer, it might be that in 3 or 4 years you want to put out a lemonade too. So then we can check what classes are in there, or you would like to go more into the food industry or etc. whatsoever. So just you need to really think in the future and think as big as possible. Where would you like to go, and what would you like to offer in the next 3 to 5 years? That's already something that's very, very important, and define the right classes in this.
Indeed.
That's actually when you have all this covered, and when you have all these, which is clear, and you have made your plan and your checklist, then you can start and you can file the application for the registration of your trade.
Absolutely. And this actually, if we take the big helicopter view here, what we're really talking about is trademarks being important over time. And what we mean over time is that trademarks come into your entire business strategy. Where do you want to go over the next 3 to 5 years? How is your company going to grow? What's your growth strategy going to look like? And as soon as we start thinking, okay, well, actually, within the next 3 to 5 years, I want to go over to the US. Well, actually, if you want to, I'm talking about geography, if you want to go over to the US, there are market specificities over there that say that you need to show a proof of business over in the US before you can register the trademark itself. So it really isn't unfortunately, it isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. There are going to be different aspects that you need to be aware of from market to market. US and China are going to be two of the big obvious ones, but then when you start digging into what makes more sense for you, Mark mentioned earlier on that if you're only doing business in Luxembourg, a Benelux trademark might make a lot more sense than taking a full EU one. But if you're thinking of going to France, Germany, and also doing some in Spain, some business in Spain and in Portugal, for example, the cost of doing the registration in each country is going to exceed the cost of doing an EU-wide trademark straight away. So yes, the financial outlay at the start might look big, but when you look at it in the aggregate, naturally it makes more financial sense. And we're constantly talking with our clients about think big, think laterally. And this is the opportunity to really talk about the future, where it is that you want to go, not only from a business point of view, but also geographically. So now that we've gone through the questions that you need to ask yourselves before the registration, we also need to understand that the registration itself, it's not because we make the application that all of a sudden, poof, that's it, the certificate is received. There are what we like to call incompressibles, such as the time that it takes to actually register a trademark. So by starting the process, and this is something that we want to get off from the start, a lot of people think that you cannot advertise before you have received the certificate. In fact, as soon as you have put through the application, when you receive the receipt of the application, technically you remember Mark said earlier on that it's first come, first served? Well, you were the first to come. So that means that as soon as you receive that, you can actually start advertising about your product or your service. So Mark, would you like to tell us a bit more about the timeline that goes into a trademark protection process?
So actually, as soon as the respective trademark office has received the filing of the application, from this day on, your protection already starts. It's not sure that you will keep it, because actually, as you can see, there are different periods that are in there in which either the trademark office can refuse the registration, or there is an opposition period where third parties can oppose against your registration. But as soon as from the day on and from the time on where you're filing in your trademark request, your registration request, you basically have already a certain protection. there are different periods. The first one is the examination period. In the examination period, the trademark office is verifying the application. They're not verifying, like for example, if someone else has registered the same name with the same classes. This is not their job. Every trademark owner has to monitor the markets and see if someone else is trying to register the trademark with the same classes or not. So that's the responsibility of the trademark owners. You might receive a note from a trademark office, depending what office it is, that someone else has already registered the same or a similar name with the same classes, but they are not interacting into this. So it's actually just an examination if the filing procedure has been respected, if the name actually respects the regulation, like is it distinctive, not descriptive, are there no offensive words and stuff like that. So like for example, a very funny thing is actually that Gene Simmons, the bass player of Kiss, wanted to register the name Enis, has been refused, obviously, because it's too close to it's opposing. So it's basically it has been refused. And these are the things that that the trademark offices actually verify. Or another very funny trademark request that has been immediately rejected was we want to marry millionaires. So that's these are the other ones. If the examination period is over, that takes normally a couple of days up to a month, depending on how much work and depending on the trademark office. After this period, the trademark will be published for the application, so everyone will see the publication of the application, and from that moment on, the opposition period starts. At the opposition period, third parties can oppose against the trademark registration. Means if, like for example, someone sees that it's his trademark that has been trying to register, or it's too similar to the trademark that another trademark owner already has, he can oppose against this registration. And in this case, the trademark office launches an investigation about this. And if the opposition is right, the trademark registration will be refused. There is, for the opposition, you really need to have proven ground. So it's not that you can just send in, I don't want this person to register the trademark. You have to have a real good reason to oppose against the trademark registration, otherwise it will not be accepted. At the end of the opposition period, there will be the registration period, where the respective trademark office will send the certificate, prepare the certificate, and then you have the trademark rights for the next 10 years in the area where you wanted to register it, or in case of a design mark, it's 5 years in the area where you would like to have it. And then you have the certificate, which is a legal and official proof that you are the sole owner of this name or design whatsoever, or jingle, or depending on what trademark you have registered for the time period it's foreseen for, which is a very cool thing.
Indeed. And this is where you really do need to be aware of the fact that as soon as you have that protection, of course, it's your own responsibility to take care of that protection, in the sense that there's always going to be somebody somewhere that it might not even be with malicious intent, might start wanting to register a trademark, but you do have to be aware that you need to have a look at what your competition is doing as well, because you can take offensive strategies, you can take defensive strategies. And this is, of course, we're starting to get into the peculiarities of trademarking in a very broad sense. So you need to be aware of what the competition is doing and how you're going to develop your company over time. So
Absolutely.
thank you. We have mentioned on several occasions that we were going to talk about some stories. And so I'm pretty sure that nobody on this webinar is unfamiliar with the logos on the screen. And as soon as we start thinking about trademarking, quite often the conversation that we end up having with our clients is, yes, but it's too long, it's too expensive, it's too hard, etc., etc. And we've really tried to make that with the GreatBrands.net platform. We've really tried to make it as easy as possible. But what we mustn't forget is that even these companies started out small. They started out as individuals that were building something that they couldn't possibly have known that it was going to become the absolutely huge companies that they are today. But at some point in time, somebody had to sit down and say, okay, well, what are we going to do about protecting our brand? And there's quite a funny story actually that Mark is going to relate to us about the Apple company. Some of you might even use their products from time to time.
Yes, when a certain Mr. Jobs launched the Apple computers, he for sure was also registering the trademark Apple, not knowing that at the time there was another English-based musical band called the Beatles have already registered Apple as a record company, and at the time the classes have not been as defined as they are now. So it was basically sort of a competition between both names. And Mr. Jobs was contacting Mr. McCartney by saying, asking him if the Beatles would allow them to use the name Apple. And Mr. McCartney actually said, yeah, but you're doing your computer stuff, as long as you're not touching the musical industry, we do not have any problem when you're using the name Apple. Yeah, a couple of years later, they were launching something called Apple iTunes. And Mr. McCartney was not very amused about this, so he was actually going into court case against Apple. But long story short, they found an agreement, and I guess there was some US dollars that have been exchanged between them. But Apple was released by Apple Records, still owed by the living and founding members of the Beatles, so that they actually that Apple has the right to use the Apple trademark for the musical industry too. That shows again that it's if you work together, even in the trademark business, you can find solutions, and something an awful lot of people do not know, that trademarks are even tradable. So you can do if you have a trademark and you're not using it, it's not that you can put it somewhere in the corner and it's a lost value. It's not. You can value a brand. You can say, okay, you can evaluate it. You can see how much did the brand make, or how much money did the brand make during the last year. You take 12% of the net of this. You go and check on the different social medias how many followers. You can go on the Google Analytics and check how many visitors have been coming there. But the most important point is actually how much money came in through the brand. And I guess that's also a sort of comparison that Jobs and McCartney made between the Apple thing. And I guess this was, they found a financial agreement so that Apple was allowed to use the Apple logo or the Apple brand in the musical industry. It's something that's very interesting. So there is a financial value that's in this business too. That's not too small. So it's a very important point.
Indeed, and I'm really happy that you picked up on the fact that brands are tradable, because once again, this comes into brand strategy. Where do we want to go with the company? We've been talking with much larger companies who have got a brand portfolio with products that they are no longer trading. However, they still have the trademarks on these products, which means that some companies actually have a certain amount of financial assets that are on the books that even these large companies don't realize that they could free up these assets by selling them on to a third party who might be able then to take on the brand and actually register it and use it for commercial use. So this is the other thing that we need to be aware of, is the fact that yes, you create a brand today, But one of the things that we spoke about very briefly earlier on is the fact that investors themselves are looking more and more at how your brand is protected. So for those of you who are going to be looking into raising funds or even selling your company at a later stage, once again, business strategy, how is your brand protected today? Mark mentioned the fact that a brand is evaluated, of course, with 12% of the net revenue, but also what kind of social media following you have. Whether we're talking about Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all of those go into building value into your brand, and investors are becoming more and more savvy around this fact. Now, we've spoken about some success stories. Let's have a conversation about some individuals, some companies whose names you might recognize on the screen, for individuals that have had a bit of a hard time with trademarks. So those among you who are familiar with the sport of individuals running around on in a field chasing a piece of leather, Neymar, he is a soccer player, and he had an unfortunate situation whereby somebody went and registered his name for commercial use. So, Mark, what happened to Neymar?
Well, actually, Neymar lost his name in a very brief description and that sort of thing. As you all certainly know, that these soccer players not only are playing soccer, but they have an awful lot of other business around where they are using their name to sell these products, like clothing, sports articles, whatsoever. There are even soccer players who are selling car rims and stuff like that. So it's for them a very interesting business next to the sports they are doing. It's not only for soccer players; it's also for tennis players and stuff like that. But Neymar had, for a reason I really ignore, not registered his trademark, so someone else did. And again, we are on the point: first come, first serve. For sure, this person also was selling clotheslines and sport clotheslines and shoes and stuff like that using the name Neymar. Neymar was not very amused because actually his name was used for a business where he didn't make any money with it. So he actually tried to sue this person and tried to get his name back. And lucky enough, as Mr. Neymar Jr. was a figure of public interest, a very well-known person, and even he needed to go to the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg to be able to get his name back. But this was a very, very hard time and a long time. I think it took something around 3 or 4 years before this case was settled. And at the end, just because he was a very known person, he was able to get his name back. But that's not always the case. So actually, if someone else is registering your name because you didn't do it, and there is no real reason, and Neymar's lawyers basically took the well-known name and the well-known personality Neymar as a reason to get it back, and because Neymar has already signed an awful lot of sporty contracts and stuff like that, so his name was already under brackets a certain legal institution, and that was the reason and the argumentation why he could get his name back. But me personally, I wouldn't have had a chance if someone would have stolen my name and would put something next to my very famous clothing line. So it's something that's really he was very, very, very lucky.
Yeah.
So
it cost him, didn't it?
It did cost him something, and if the rumors are right, it cost him something around 3.5 to 4 million euros. So it's just so the whole procedure, but it's next to the money. I guess this amount is not hurting him very much, but it's more. Imagine you can't use your name, and you have, I don't know, 5 or 6 different product lines where your name is used, and you can't use it anymore because someone else does. Or imagine just someone's doing bad products, like for example, if you're having a very good name and someone's using it for bad financial things or for adult entertainment or whatsoever, then it's not very cool for your reputation if someone like this is using your name.
In fact, we're going to talk about one of those cases in just a bit. But obviously, when we're talking about the usage of a name, when we're talking about how these names get used and how the trademarks get filed, that actually takes us on to the next example, which was McDonald's that lost the right to use Big Mac.
Exactly. They lost the right to use the name Big Mac just because, and again, you can see how important the classes are when you're registering a trademark. So McDonald's has registered the trademark for the term Big Mac somewhere around 98, but they lost it after a decision of EUIPO due to a request of an Irish-based fast food chain called Supermax. Supermac didn't want to McDonald's to use the trademark on the name Big Mac. McDonald's has registered the name under multiple classes of goods and service, like for food preparation, sandwiches, and different other services associated with for operating restaurants and doing all these kind of things. And the argumentation they were putting up was that Big Mac trademark was actually not properly used during the last 5 years. And you need to know that when you register a trademark, you really need to use it on a commercial base within the first 2 years. That's for Europe. But on different national countries, like for the Americans, for the US, you need to have a proof of usage immediately when you register the trademark. That's just Mr. Trump actually wants to protect the American market, and it's because the Chinese were registering an awful lot of these trademarks that they grabbed. And to avoid this, actually, if you want to register an American trademark, you have to prove immediately that you want to use it for commercial use in the US directly. So it's and the proofs that you need to bring up are very hard. So, but in this case, on McDonald's, basically the argument was that the name was used on packagings and advertisement in a lot of countries, which has not been accepted, as it stated only for use for the class defining the sandwiches, but not the other classes for which the trademark was actually obtained. So the EUIPO decided that the evidence from McDonald's did not qualify as genuine use for the defined goods and services and released a decision to cancel the trademark, which as a result brought, like, for example, Burger King. They decided to make some funny advertising by creating new menus like I remember Burger King advertising an entire menu of sandwiches called Not Big Macs, or they used several of its products like Big Mac-ish, but flame grilled, of course, or like Big Mac, but actually big, and all these kind of things. For sure, this just went for a couple of days, and McDonald's immediately went into court against these. But it's very funny to see how they see, and trademarks are an important values, and McDonald's lost a huge value at this stage. And it shows how important the definition of classes is, and the definition of the rules. So the detail was actually the trademark was not put to genuine use, and that was enough for the EUIPO, so the European Patent Office, to take away the trademark to McDonald's, which is very funny.
And that illustrates a really good point, in the sense that it's not because you're a small company that you can't go against very, very large companies. So this is also something to keep in mind for those of you who have got young companies that do want to challenge the status quo. We absolutely love cases that are, let's say, a bit more complex, but we'll cover those in just a minute. One case that has been in the news very, very recently is Banksy, and obviously this is still an ongoing case that we're going to be following quite closely. Maybe in a couple of words, Mark, you can tell us a bit about the flower thrower.
Yeah, Banksy, the famous graffiti artist from London, has in Jerusalem, I guess it was. Yes, it was in Jerusalem. Has put a image of a kid throwing a flower bouquet in there. Banksy is actually, as you know, very provocative, and he says that all of his art that he's making is open for everyone, so there are no copyrights on this, etc., etc. But in any case, he has actually registered the trademark for the flower thrower. flower thrower. It's even if you want to say it quickly behind, it's not a flower thrower. So okay, it's actually he was registering the trademark, and another company in the UK actually said that it's registered for bad faith because it's actually not used for it's not the flower. The image is not used for commercial usage. So every trademark, as I described before, has to be used in a commercial way in any case. So it's they said, okay, yes. And as Mr. Banksy said, yeah, I'm not using, everyone can use my images and everyone can do it. The EU IPO again has decided to take away the trademark. In this case, I'm not quite sure, and I'm actually for the moment analyzing still in depth if we can't go against this decision, because in any case, Banksy is making money. And in any case, he's bringing out books. He's making, he's promoting these, and everyone knows the picture. And I'm quite sure if you see it, you will know immediately that it's a Banksy. So it's sort of something where Banksy is very good in marketing himself and marketing the pictures, and he's making money out of it. So there is certainly a way in proving and showing that it's not bad faith, but then he's using them for either a personal commercial way in making money out of it. So that's something where I'm because it's very interesting for me, and I'm very much into this, and I'm checking on a personal way how we could go against this decision. And if I find it, perhaps we're going to contact Mr. Banksy.
Possibly. Or even if dear Mr. Banksy, Mr. or Mrs., by the way, because he is anonymous.
Yes.
So who knows? Banksy might be a lady friend. Anyway, so those are, and of course, these have been widely publicized, and we'll keep you up to date if we do make any progress on Banksy. But the ones that and these are just 3 examples that are much closer to home. Some of you might even know the founders of these companies. For those of you who are listening from Luxembourg, Rode Leven Bohnenkaffee is actually one case that we're extremely proud of. Mark mentioned earlier on the usage of trademarks and how it's so important to understand that everything across the board needs to be protected. And here is a case where we were able to take the lack of protection and actually use it to our advantage. So, Mark, tell us a bit more about Rode Leven.
We used it for the customer's advantage. Let's say it like this.
Of course.
Rode Leven Bohnenkaffee. If you want to have a real good coffee, then just go and buy yourself Rode Leven Bohnenkaffee. It's really good. It's a high quality coffee where the producer really, I think he knows each bean by name or something like that. But it's really a very high quality coffee. As he started to be successful a couple of years ago. For sure, there has been a copycat, and he was very badly consulted because actually the company that made the trademark just registered the name and the Rode Leven, which means red lion in Luxembourgish, and they just protected this, but they haven't protected any corporate identity, they haven't protected any packaging, they haven't protected no slogans and nothing. So, long story short, when they started to be successful, another coffee maker, which has basically a low quality coffee or the lower quality coffee, actually copied the design. And they made a very similar design to the Rode Leven Bohnenkaffee. And they put it into the market. After a couple of days, our customer became called by saying why they had such a bad coffee and why they are selling such a bad coffee, and would not be cool, because actually high quality coffee costs a certain amount of money, and people that paid for this coffee were expecting a high quality coffee, but they didn't get it. The customer made an investigation, and he saw that this similar packaging was actually standing next to his coffee, because the people that are working in the grocery stores who are filling up the shelves have actually not made the distinction between his coffee, his high quality coffee, and the bad quality coffee, because the design was so close, and they put it next to each other. So long story short, what we did is actually we have reviewed together with the customer the complete design and corporate identity structure. We have protected it. It went to Court of Justice. They found an agreement, but the copycat had to take away his copy packaging and put a new packaging where his coffee is sold now, which was very successful for us and also for our customer, because his corporate identity is now protected. And if someone else is coming up, we can react immediately against these. And Philip,
so for those of you,
yeah,
for those of you, and thank you for those of you who might remember earlier on when we were talking about defensive and offensive strategies. This is a case whereby it is really thanks to the customers that had a very strong feeling that contacted the owner of Hordelev that actually said, you know, why has the quality of your product gone down? But it could have, you need to remember that this is affecting directly the bottom line of the company because of a copycat, and that is something that needs to be understood. When we're talking about brand protection, we're really talking about the livelihood of the company moving forwards. So, Mark, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it was very cool. So I was just wanted to go to the next case, which is Hofländle. As you were mentioning also before, that even when you are a small company, you can register or you have to register your trademarks, and you should not be afraid about big players on the market. Mm-hmm. It's Hofländle is exactly this case. Hofländle is a grocery store who has developed a very special, let's say infrastructure for buying. They are a 24-hour shop, 7 days 7. Even on Christmas, you can go there and buy stuff because you're served by robots. It's really cool. You can buy everything you want to you need, so toilet paper, water, milk, eggs, whatsoever, and you're actually served by bots, which is a very, very cool thing. Now, and I'm not allowed to use the name because it's still on a running case. There is a huge German discounter who has a similar name, who's actually went against the trademark registration of Hofländle because they say the name is too similar to ours. We went against this. He came to us and asked for help because we have not registered the trademark for him. He did it on his own. He did it very well. He made his homework very cool. But actually going against big law cabinets and law offices, he basically said, okay, I need no professional help, and came up to us. We already won 4 times against this huge discounter because he's saying it's just on one class where he's actually claiming they are just selling under this name. They're just selling one product, but Hofländle is selling an awful lot of products. As I said, they have everything that you can find in a small grocery store: toilet paper, fish, meat, eggs, bread, whatsoever. So all these kind of things. And the big discounter actually still tries to go against the Hofländle registration. But as I said, we have won already 4 times against them. Now we're on a decisive stage where the German trademark office is actually taking a decision, and I hope that it's basically in our favor, which
absolutely. And once that one is cleared up, we will definitely write up about it, because it's another one of those cases that's a bit David against Goliath. But we will be helping the customer throughout the entire process, of course. And the last one that we're particularly proud of, as you've probably seen. One of our fellow entrepreneurs has created the application Giftable here in Luxembourg. For those of you who might not have heard it, you will definitely hear about it in the coming weeks, if not months, across social media and in different platforms. And giftable, when we think about it, is a name. As soon as you have said it, if you've interested yourself in trademarking at all, you can imagine how complex that particular registration is going to be. And we actually really like those cases that are, let's say, difficult trademarks, because it's all about how we put argumentation forwards. And maybe, Mark, you can tell us a bit more about that particular case.
Oh, yes, I like gift. As I mentioned before, there is a rule that says that trademarks should not be, or are not allowed to be, descriptive. Giftable, it's nothing more than descriptive. So in this case here, Giftable is actually an app offering voucher codes. So you can, like, for example, if you're running a company and you want to invite your co-workers or your staff, I don't know, to go and drink a coffee and a croissant on company cost, you can send via Giftable a voucher code that you can go to the company that actually is part of the network of Giftable and pay via this thing. So it's actually Giftable, and it's extremely descriptive of what we're doing. But as it's a technical platform, we actually have played around with the classes, and we have registered the name with the classes for apps, for computer development, for software development, for networks, and all these kind of things. And having the argumentation, because actually the app is free of charge, so it cannot be a gift. It's actually, that was the argumentation. It went way further, but I don't want to go into detail, and I don't want to tell you how our magic's working. But it's the way how we managed to have this trademark registered. And I must admit, this was one of the complicated ones, and I'm very proud that we have managed to get this one through. It has been refused at the beginning, but our argumentation that went against the refusal was good enough for the European Trademark Office. And it's
I am very happy that you said that, because we spoke about the process earlier on, and in fact, coming to a close on this presentation, we all need to understand, and we've spoken about quite a few things today. We all need to understand that even in the process, it really is a conversation. It's an argumentation that gets put forwards, and then if it gets received, then you can counter argument that refusal. Which really brings us to what we have learned today.
If I may just add something in.
Oh, please carry on.
When you register your trademark, it's very important. Or if you go to someone who is going to register the trademark for you, it's very important that this person understands exactly the business you're in, and the products and the services. It's very important to know each and every little detail of the thing, so that you can define, first of all, the right classes, and you can define also the right trademark or trademark type, which is also important. We see every day, like, for example, logos that have been registered as a figurative mark, which is actually absolutely stupid. It's possible, but first of all, the figurative marks are more expensive than the design marks, and secondly, when you have a design mark, there is a section for logos, which is more powerful than a figurative mark. As the name says, a figurative is a figure. It can be a 2D or 3D figure, but it's not a logo in my opinion. And you really need to define and understand the business of the company, or the product or service the company would like to register a trademark for, as good as possible. And therefore you need to talk to the person that's registering your trademark and go into each and every detail, and also tell these people where you want to go in the next 3 to 5 to 6 years, so that if they're good, they are really putting up a roadmap, and they're putting up a proper analysis, so that they can that your trademark will be properly registered, and that the risk that the registration is refused is minimized. So that was just what that's like.
Not at all. I mean, that actually really does come into what we've learned today, and in fact, that entire section is the business sense at the bottom right of this slide. You really do need to think about how trademarking is going to affect your strategy and how your strategy is going to affect your brand protection strategy, of course, because everything is interlinked. So we've spoken again and again about the fact that a trademark needs to be distinctive and not descriptive. But as Mark just illustrated, in the case of Giftable, even there we can start having a conversation about the classes. And this is the next point. So what we've also done on GreatBrands.net is that we have created what we call the class engine, because as you will have probably understood earlier on, the class selection process can be extremely time consuming in the sense that you need to go through all of the potential classes and then all of the subclasses to find the one or the ones that best suit your needs. And we've created a tool that does exactly that. It helps with the class selection process, whereby with natural language, you're going to be able to select very quickly those classes that are best suited to you. You'll find out more about that when you come and visit us on the platform. Mark has already mentioned the business sense, and this is really something that's going to be quite important in the medium to long term, of course, and this is something that we really ask you to consider when you're thinking about even building your company from scratch. Also, from a business sense, Mark mentioned earlier on that trademarks are tradable. What if you didn't actually have to register your brand because there is a brand or a trademark or even a trademark portfolio that is for sale? Okay, so what we're trying to do here is really bring the conversation round to, do I have to start from scratch, or is there something available on the market that I could purchase and not start from scratch? Okay, so this is a conversation that we'll be happy to have with you over time. And then the last point on the slide is really the process and the timeline. The process has very clearly defined steps. Even before you start the actual registration process, there are a certain series of questions that need to be asked. And this really does bring us round to the open section of the conversation, which is where you are going to be able to ask your questions. So we've got another 15 minutes left, roughly, and it has been an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much, everyone, for listening. So please do feel free to fire away on your questions, and we will be more than happy to answer them.
So from the questions, we have one particular one for you. So I'll start off with that one that was sent to us. So if a main purpose of a company is to trade timber or sawmill products, and there is no specific product that the company is basically involved in, so it's more of a trading as a purpose, is there really a need for a trademark for such a small trading company? Or if the company is not a producer of products themselves, and what would you recognize is the name of the company and logo? And if it was the case, what would the class of trademark be in this particular business?
But actually, we need to verify a little bit more. If you say trading, that can be an awful lot of things.
So timber and sawmill products.
Oh, timber and sawmill products. And let me just quickly check. But yes, for sure, the company has a name, and it's everything, or every company having or using a name is actually. Yeah, if someone else is registering the name, you can't use it. If it's not important for you, then okay, leave it be. But it's something that has to be protected. You just need to check in what area it is. And if you're having a trading, everything in the classes, as I said, there are 45 main classes with several thousand. And believe me, I put every single keyword into our database. Well. There are over 100,000 different classes that are in. And if you're saying now
keywords.
Keywords that haven't coming in that are in. So I basically will quickly check. So it's trading on CMO TM class. Hold on. Just give me a second.
So whilst Mark is looking for those one thing that we want to make very, very clear is that it's all about your competitive landscape. If that the company in question is a company that has got zero competition and there are going to be no competitors in the short, medium, and long term in the area in which they do business, then does it make business sense to protect the brand? The reality is that nowadays there are few, if not no, industries in which there are no competitors, and if they are in an industry where there is very little competition, what's the relationship with the competitors that are available? That are actually on the market. So, I mean, obviously, all of you have heard about SWOT analysis, and effectively, is this a threat? How important is trademarking for you in the short, medium, and long term? And of course, in the short term, it might indeed not be a huge perceived threat. However, how much are you relying on your brand to sell your products and services? So everything is covered in terms of from a trademarking point of view, and how you adopt that strategy is going to be a question of planning and of strategy.
Exactly. And I found now the classes for timber. There are different timber things. So actually, you have worked timber, artificial timber, you have timber for construction, and all these kind of things. This is going from class 19, class 31, class 40. There is even financial evaluation of timber, which I basically learned something today, which is class 36. So there are several classes concerning timber, even on the timber machines that are used for timber. Let's say for
Indeed.
for this. But if the customer wants, just get in touch with us, and we can make a small analysis of his trademark with the classes, where we can put in the main subclasses, the main header classes in the structure, so that he can see what we have, or what can be used as class for timber.
And by the way, for those of you who have been following, normally for Mark to provide that speed, or that answer with that kind of speed, would not have been feasible if he had to go through the classes manually, and that he just used the class engine that we were talking about.
Exactly.
Do we have a next question?
Yes, we have a few more. So one
Fantastic.
is, if a company has already registered a brand name for class 16 and 17, is there any problem to register the same for other classes? Can that be a strategy?
Means that you have already registered a trademark, and you
No, somebody else. If, let's say, a competitor has already, or some other company, not a competitor, has registered a trademark for class 16 and 17. So for a new startup, if they want to get some brand protection, and if it does not fall into the same classes, can they still get some protection?
Yes.
Yes, sure, that's possible. Yes. Absolutely. That's what we meant when we described actually that you can register the same name using different classes. This is possible, as long as I said the classes are not too much related to it. Like, for example, if you have the class for books and you're selling ebooks, this will cause a problem because it's too close. But if it's like, for example, we take timber and you go next, you are selling, I don't know, IT stuff, then it's absolutely possible. So if the business and the classes are far away from the business area, then it's fine. It's not an issue.
A very simple question is, does a trademark has an expiration period, or once you register, it's yours forever? I know the answer, but I'm going to let the experts give the most current opinion.
Hey, actually, we're going to be recruiting Pranjul. So, if... No, I'm joking, of course. As Mark said earlier on, trademarks have got 10 years for Europe. Design marks have got 5 years. Mark, maybe this is an opportunity if there are any other timelines that we should be aware of.
No, that's basically the two timelines. So it's It's 10 years for the standard trademarks, including the figurative marks, the shape marks, and stuff like that. And everything that has to do with the design marks is 5 years. And that's a common timeline in nearly every country in the world. There are some where it's for design mark 3 or 6, but it's very rare. It's just 1 or 2. So it's
those were the famous market specificities that we were talking about earlier on.
Cool. I have 2 more questions actually. So in a figurative and traditional word, the trademark, what are the symbols acceptable? Is it full Unicode or there are some other limitations for this?
For the word marks and for the design marks, so basically it's you can register a word mark with words or letters, numerals, or other standard typographic characters, or a combination of these. If you're now having special signs and stuff, these are actually not possible. So that's these are things actually the trademark offices are not using. There are discussions for the moment, like for example the @ or special signs like that they should come up, but for the moment it's very difficult to use these. But it also depends again on the trademark offices. Like for example, the @ in the American office, they use it already, but at the EUIPO, it's still a discussion.
Okay, I have one which is, I guess, so the question is simple. Can GreatBrands help an organization to register a brand globally, or is there any other organization which can help that in that direction?
Short answer, yes.
Okay, cool. So you have an answer.
We can even go further. We can also provide you legal help on a worldwide base. Actually, on let's say worldwide base, it's very hard because there are actually some very strange African countries or Asiatic countries where I even can't spell the name. There we don't have representation, but we have we have an awful lot of lawyers that are working for us or with us. We have also lawyers working for us, but we can also provide legal help in most of the countries in the world.
Indeed.
Cool. So I think that answers the question probably many might have in terms of can GreatBrands be approached for reaching out or like having protection in other countries? And yes, so the quick answer is yes. I have a bit of a long question here, and I think it needs more of an introspection from our experts. Is in a research setting like we are in the university at the moment, and if somebody is thinking of taking a trademark for some research results, which may eventually end up in a spin-off, does it make sense to protection while it is still at the research level at the university, or should we leave it until the startup is formed and let the startup take care of it? So I mean, first of all, does it make sense strategically, and is there any other reasons why you should not do that? Because eventually you need to license the trademark off as well, and then there is of course the whole question about valuation behind it. What is in your experience the best strategy and why, and what would be the pros and cons involved in going for one strategy or the other?
Well,
it's as you know, as we explained, it's actually first come first serve. And if you have someone working already on a product or on a company or on a project with where a name has already been defined and the name is available, then we always consult to register it as quickly as possible. It's never a loss, as we said. Even though that in 6 or 7 months you say no, we're not using this name in any case, you can always sell it. So you don't have a thing, and at least you will get the money out that you invested for the creation of the trademark. But to avoid that the name gets grabbed or someone else is using it or something, we're living in a very fast world, and people are sharing information in a very fast way. So these things are actually a very high risk if you're going out and you're talking to investors or you're talking to other people about it, and you mention the name, and it might be that there is one saying, okay, that's a cool name, and we take it, and they are registering it. So then you can restart by finding a new name and analyzing what name you can do, and you might perhaps have already designed a logo or done a little bit of things. The important point is that there is already an entity, an official entity that will register the name, but as names are tradable, you can always switch the name of the company or of the private person that has registered the name. And even this, if there is no money, if it's not sold to someone, the change of name is even free of charge. So you can do it on your own and it will cost you nothing. So that's the thing. But at least you have protected and you have reserved under brackets the name already. So.
Mm-hmm. Pranjul, I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry, can you also comment a little bit on the valuation on that? How should a university put a tag or value onto this when they're like, eventually licensing that and transferring all the trademarks and the protection onward to a spin-off? Is there some guidelines on how to put a value on it?
Well, first and foremost, in the two cases that Mark mentioned earlier on, so Apple and Hordelev, it was an agreement between two entities that was reached. There are several ways that can be done. Of course, and Mark described this earlier on with the famous 12%, that of course can be taken as a basis. But if we're talking about the university taking it and then spinning it off, what is the future value of that company going to be, and what also is a realistic value at this stage of the game? So there isn't a mathematical formula that is going to apply every single time, because of the stage at which that company is going to be when the spin-off is going to be created. Now, as soon as you start talking about what the value is going to be from a monetary point of view, if that spin-off, by the time it actually spins off, is already generating hundreds of millions, which I hope is a problem that you have, in that case, of course, the figure for transferring or even licensing that trademark is going to be much higher than if the potential earnings is probably a few $100,000 a year. There's really... It would make no sense whatsoever for the university to turn around to the spin-off and say, okay, well, you now owe us, let's say, $1 million, if it's going to take them 10, 15, 20 years to generate that kind of revenue. So from a financial point of view, it's a question of realistic projections and what the university will actually invest from a financial point of view, so what it's really cost them, and then saying, okay, well, we've done this for you, and we're going to add, and this could be a solution, we're going to add X% for you to, and it could be like a royalty. And this is just an example. I mean, it's a completely open debate, open conversation as to what financial exchanges is actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to check one more question here. For a visual brand logo, how can one know if that is reserved or not, or is being used? Is there also a repertoire for graphic designers or specialists who design logos to know if that is already in use or not?
Yes, there are databases where these are actually shown. You can check and verify this. There are also tools that actually check for the similarity of these of logos or of graphical designs. There are several tools that are even on the respective trademark offices. They are available there, where you can check before the registration if the same or a similar logo has already been registered. I don't know, there were a couple of years ago, there was the famous frog design, which have been a French company has actually used a similar design as for the international design company, and this was they have actually pushed the trademark offices to put things online so that these can be verified. So to avoid these kind of things, because it's very, very difficult to see, especially if it's a similarity. Because in design questions, how would you like to define a similarity? It's one sees it like this, another sees it like that. Is a similarity already when it has the same color, or is it a similarity when it has same angles and stuff like that? So there are things that are really you really need to go into the details. But as there are more and more tools and software that are going to the market that are even checking for brand infringement, so these things are also able to check and to verify different logos and different types of designs and similar type of designs, etc. So there are tools to do this, yes. But I must admit, the question is a very good one, because it's very complicated to define a similarity of a design. So it's really,
indeed.
Thank you. So what are the sanctions if another trademark has similarities to one which is registered at a different geographical location?
Means graphical location. You mean if it's
geographical?
Yeah,
geographical.
So if graphically there are similarities, what would be the sanctions at different geographical locations, not the one where it is registered?
If it's not registered in the country where you want to register it, you can do it. But it's as I said, first come, first serve. If, like, for example, someone has registered a logo in Germany but not in France, you can register it in this case. But the problem is it's very difficult to say just go ahead and do it, because in any case, if there are, like, we had the case personally, as you know, I'm coming from the domain name business, and we have used the name hotmail.lu with a similar logo from Microsoft's Hotmail, and I'm talking about 20 years ago. So Microsoft has not registered the Hotmail logo and the Hotmail name in the Benelux. It was registered everywhere, but not in the Benelux. And we have used this. If you have a big company, and you're doing things like that, you must take the risk that they find other ways in chasing you, and that's something I really would like to be informative about. If you're going and you take a similar logo or a similar font or a similar graphical expression in somewhere, you need to be, in any case, far away to be distinctive enough to this company. So then there is no problem. If you're copying one-on-one, and you're going there and you register your logo in Germany or in France where it's not been registered, and you're having a big company like Microsoft or something, they will find ways in going against. But if there is a small company, small manufacturing company, or a small service company, then it's actually, the risk is actually not that high.
I think we have come to the end of the questions, if I'm not mistaken, Pranjul.
Yes, I think we covered pretty much everything. If there's any questions, of course, I'm happy to. We will, of course, share the recording of this session, and you will all receive, of course, the email contact, which is also displayed here. You can always reach out to Philip and Mark for further information, and we will, of course, officially, introduce you via an email. So feel free to reach out to them if other questions pop up later on. But thanks a lot to everybody for joining, and join me in
applauding.
Applauding both of our expert speakers today, Mark and Philip. Great workshop, and best of luck on this adventure, and
thank you.
This fascinating new product that you are bringing forward. And I think for me, absolutely, it was clear that going forward, I think all the startups need to think about this and have a proper strategy right from the get-go. on how to go about it. So if you have any questions, any doubts, always feel free to reach out to Philip, not just as GreatBrands, but he's also as a mentor for a lot of our startups. And I think a lot of you already know him from the ideation camps. So feel free to bug him when you see him next time.
Thanks, Prenjal. And all of a sudden, LinkedIn goes bang. Yeah, a happy problem to have. But
Yes.
we would definitely like to thank you and everybody that has participated today. You've been amazing, and we're looking forward to seeing you in person one of these fine days before the end of the year, I am hoping. So once again, thank you very much. Mark, thank you very much as well for your time.
Oh, thanks to you. It's thanks to everyone who has taken the time for listening what we said, and I hope because it's very important for us to teach everyone a little bit about trademarks, because it's a very important topic and it's actually a little bit underestimated. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity, and we wish you all the very best.
Yes.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. Have a nice afternoon. Thanks again. And see you at the next webinar.
Cheers to all.
Cheers.
Thanks again. Bye.